This podcast is a quest for well-being, a quest for a meaningful life through the exploration of fundamental truth. Enlightening ideas, insights on physical, mental, and spiritual health. The inspiration is love. The aspiration is to awaken new ways of thinking that can lead us to a new way of being well. Welcome to Body, Mind, and Soul Healing Conversations.
The focus of Yildiz's work has always been on helping herself and others to fulfill our potential in becoming empowered to live more satisfied and meaningful lives. Mental health professionals often maintain a sense of loyalty to their chosen modality that may become a restriction to exploring other ways of working or thinking. Yildiz's work invites you to come out of your school of thought, at least for a while, and explore what is taking place in terms of innovation and development in the psychotherapy world and the formation of new approaches. New approaches are taking what is of value from each of the major strands of former approaches and integrating them into new modalities so as to provide a means to improve their effectiveness with clients as mental health professionals continue on their own personal and professional growth paths. Rapid Core Healing, RCH, is a dual approach of psychotherapy that is composed of emotional mind integration, EMI, and family constellations, FC. Yildiz has adopted a large humanistic philosophical stance in developing RCH, in that it is largely person-centered and experiential, while also solution-focused, psychodynamic, and brief. Valeria interviews Yildiz Sithi. She is the author of Rapid Core Healing Pathways to Growth and Emotional Healing, using the unique dual approach of family constellations and emotional mind integration for personal and systemic health. Yildiz is the innovator and founder of Rapid Core Healing and Emotional Mind Integration that is presented in her book, Rapid Core Healing Pathways to Growth and Emotional Healing. Rapid Core Healing is a two-pronged approach developed to work with an issue from the systemic and personal biography aspects in a truly holistic and revolutionary manner for brief, deep, and effective interventions of disturbances, conflicts, and trauma. She is a psychotherapist, educator, change and transformation specialist, systemic family constellations practitioner, and trainer and speaker. Meet Yildiz at rapidcorehealing.com. Here's the interview with Yildiz Sithi.
In your own words, who is Yildiz Sithi?
Yildiz Sithi. I am a woman who was born in England, and I was born to a mixed family, Turkish father, English mother, eldest of 7 children. And I always had an interest in, probably because I was born between races, between religions, in spirituality and culture and science and how things worked, actually. I've always had strong curiosity. So that kind of led me to becoming a science teacher, physics and chemistry for many years, because I had a really strong feeling that I wanted to help people realize who they were. Myself first, obviously, we have to start with ourselves. And then I saw teaching as a way of, enabling children like myself to realize themselves and become who they need to be. And then later in life, I went on holiday in Australia and met 2 Vedic astrologers in 1 week. And I'd never heard of Vedic astrology. And I came home absolutely enthralled and with a course and became totally obsessed. And within a year of that, I left my science teaching, much to the horror of my family and my friends who thought I'd gone a bit crazy. And I became really involved in karmic cycles. And that got me to the question of, well, what can we do about them? And that put me into therapy, where I wanted to find the most effective ways of working to help people, not only with on the surface behavior, but really deeply at that karmic level. How do you make those deep changes where we're not going around in karmic circles forever? You know, that there must be a way out is the way I saw it. And so that put me into counseling. Then I became a hypnotherapist, NLP practitioner. And then I was quite happy with all of that. And I eventually was looking in a bookshop in Sydney one day when a little book seemed to jump out at me from the shelf, Acknowledging What Is by Bert Hellinger. I bought the book and took it home and was enthralled and said to myself, wow, you know, I would love to meet this person, experience Family Constellations, because he's the founder of Family Constellations. And then I kind of let it go. And then a couple of years later, we were in India, traveling through India on a trip, and we stopped at an ashram. And on the next day in that ashram was a big sign in the center saying, Family Constellations, come and have a look. So I was just absolutely enthralled. And we went and had a look and stayed for the 3-day workshop, and then stayed for the next couple of weeks for training, my first Family Constellation training. We more or less abandoned our holiday and just did that.
Okay.
And that was the first step into a totally new way of working, which I have been using ever since. That was 2005. And Family Constellations is a most amazing, energetic psychotherapy, psychodynamic, going to the root cause, that works briefly and quickly to get to those core issues, and particularly works with generational or systemic problems. And that was fantastic. So I did that for a long time. And then I realized there was another whole area that needed to be looked at as well, which was what is stored in our personal conscious and unconscious mind. And that really led to many years of practice with clients, etc., until I came up with emotional mind integration. And then I put the two together to make rapid core healing.
Wow.
So that's me. And so now I'm here in Tamborine Mountain, Queensland, Australia, and I hold my own private practice of sessions and also training. And I work primarily online now because a lot of my clients are not local. They're usually national and international for both. And that keeps me busy, as I am right now.
Yes, happily busy from what I see.
Happily busy.
I love
that.
Apart
from all of that, I am a mother. I am a wife. I'm a grandmother. So I have a very full life. Yes.
Yes. How wonderful. Yeah, thank you so much. I said that off record. I want to thank you again for being open to life to this extent of going deeper into truth. That's how I see it. I see scientists and spiritual seekers. What they are doing is looking for truth. So they have that in common, clearly to me. A follow-up question from everything that you said that I wrote here, I have to ask you now, is about this idea of knowing oneself. What it's like to realize oneself?
To realize oneself, for me, is about being totally open with all that we are. And that's the very positive to the very possible negative. Not trying to shut away or push away the negative. Rather look at what that's trying to tell us. And I think whenever we think we're too good to be so horrible, we need to watch out, basically,
Yes.
because we are just creatures, we're just human beings, and it's up to us with our consciousness and our choices to navigate our life in the way we want, but not by shutting out, just by acknowledging that, whenever I see people behaving badly, or to my opinion anyway, I think, wow, it's probably me in a past life. It's like I can't judge them. Probably they have to go through that to go to something else later.
Right.
So that's kind of my bigger picture view, I guess, and that helps a lot. And also, once you get to that point, you're not really critical of yourself. You're more of an observer of yourself, and of course, the first step is acceptance before you can finally love yourself, and that opens up the door to accepting and loving others, basically.
Wow. Yeah, beautifully said. And it's very clear to me. Yes. Wow, what's not to love about that? So, is that your idea of spirituality? To embracing who we are as a whole, or there's more to it?
Spirit, certainly what you said is true, understanding who we are, but then understanding our oneness with family, with, culture, with the earth, humanity, and then going beyond, right? So it's a bigger picture of oneness for me, where my little ego, if you like, or my, I'm sitting here in where I am and doing what I do, but I'm fully aware that even though I'm so passionate about what I do, it's probably really very small in the scheme of things, in the scheme of the bigger picture of oneness, universal energy. I call spirituality all that is, right? That's my catchphrase, I guess, because I don't like to call it God, and I don't like to call it. I don't have a name for it in a sense, because it's too big a thing to give it one name, basically. And I write about that in another book I wrote actually, called Stardust on the Spiritual Path, which kind of goes into all of that. But my latest book, Rapid Core Healing, is more about, I guess, when people are struggling, and I've struggled a lot in my earlier years too, the question for me is, well, what is holding them back from being who they could be, who they have the potential to be, or just what is stopping them from opening up into whatever they're meant to experience. And for me, we're all on a spiritual path, whether we know it or not. It's only people who are ready for those deeper opening up that seek people like me or you or anybody else out to go to that next step. So yes, that's what I meant by it's always possible to have a change. It's always possible to go to that next level of opening up.
That's another beautiful, insightful, powerful message. Yes, I love your perspective on spirituality. That is one that connects with me profoundly. The interconnectedness of everything, universal energy, oneness.
Yes.
That's very much it for me. I guess I come from, let's say, the body mind comes from trauma, complex PTSD. Wow, and who knows what else, Yildiz. So my childhood was not easy, and it really brought on a lot of unnecessary suffering. So I guess because my first kind of go-to, without realizing, healing path was a spiritual one, feeling connected to the invisible world through nature, the moon, the sky, the stars, animals, and plants. And that never left me. So when I was a child, that was my experience of feeling connected. And then as a young teenager as well. And then I I just went deeper into it, trying to find out the nature of existence, the nature of being. And then I thought I had it. I finally realized what that was. And I had this misconception that once I realized what it was, not who it was, then everything would go away. The pain would go away. Then the body, mind would be healed. It didn't happen. So talk to me from that perspective for a moment. I know you mentioned your book, Stardust on the Spiritual Path. So that book touches very much into the spiritual aspect of being, of healing. And then your latest book, I know you wrote another book too called Be Rich in Spiritual.
That's right. They're all different aspects of the same story, I guess. How to realize yourself, how to unpack. I guess when it comes, it's one thing to have, and I absolutely agree with you, Valeria, that when you live a very conflicted, traumatized existence, particularly in childhood, and you also come from parents who also, experience a lot of trauma in their own life as well. You've got a double impact of trauma. You've got your personal trauma that you've experienced in your growing up, or you're even in the womb. And then you've also got the impact of the epigenetic trauma that comes through the generations as well. And so for me, it's about helping people, it's what, and I agree with you that the first step when you come born into that kind of situation is to look for something to connect with, right? Because you don't have those connections within your immediate family. Right. And we all need love and connection as a number one, number two, love and connection. Right. And so if we don't get it in our original family, we look outside of that to the universe, to the stars, to whatever. Yeah. And we usually find it, and it helps, of course it does, but it doesn't solve the problem of the trauma, because the trauma lies in the neural connections between the mind and the body, and they affect everything, the way we look at life, the way we live our life. So this is why I have chosen to work the way I have in using family constellations for a generational trauma clearing, which I do frequently, in fact, almost in every session. And then also emotional mind integration, which is the other way I work in the personal clearing. Now, it's not just clearing. Clearing sounds like I'm doing a Reiki or something. I'm not. What I do is I always start with the symptom. So let's say somebody like yourself has had a difficult situation, and now, even though they've got this bigger picture and they are connected with all that is, or universal energy, or whatever you want to say, there's still a sense of trauma, sadness, triggers, PTSD arising in daily life, because it just takes a look, doesn't it? Or a voice, or a sudden hint of a memory or something to come up, and you're back in there. So what I do is I work with those triggers and follow it back to the cause. And then I've got a whole sequence of working in emotional mind integration and family constellations, where we actually come to a place where the person can find safety first, because nobody's going to work unless they feel safe, right? And then I help them find their justice, whatever that is, right? Within the amygdala, right? And then once we go through that, we then go through a place of integration with love, and they come out the other end within a 60-minute session, feeling that sense of dignity and autonomy, right? Which then frees them up to be more who they need to be, or who they are already. And this is really how I'm working now. And the way I like it so much is that, as a counsellor, I kind of was really disappointed actually with talk therapy and what would you say, traditional ways of doing it gave us, which was wonderful in the early days when Freud came out, but here we are in 2024 still doing the same. It's like, that's not good enough at all. The conscious mind is only 7% of our consciousness. So why are we just focusing there when all the problems are way deeper? So that's why I have, wanted to find more effective ways of working. And that's, I guess, the scientist in me coming out. In knowing there's a better way. There must be a better way. And so I have just jumped out on my own and just done my own methodologies, which are working amazingly for all the people that I see. And the people I see, as you mentioned before, I think, are the people who have come to that point when they do not want to suffer anymore. They've come to that point of, no, I will do anything now to make this change. I've tried hundreds of different methodologies. I've meditated, I've done this, I've done that. And, I've still got this nagging feeling inside, or this trigger that sets me off, or my anger still comes up, or whatever, So that's where I'm working at the moment.
Yes. Oh, that's wonderful to know. And also that you train other professionals. Right?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And because I'm not that young, right? I am a grandmother, and I'm not going to be here that long. And I really know I can only see so many people per week in sessions. But if I can train many more people, then a better way of working for the 21st century can start to take root, can start to spread and become normalized. And people have an option then of going to somewhere much deeper and faster and quicker, or carrying on doing therapy for years and years and years and years, which I actually don't agree with. I think it's actually another hook, and it doesn't necessarily help that much. Yeah.
How wonderful. Yeah, I love your intention. I love your mission, right? Just leaving this work here for generations to come.
That's right.
And making also mental health professionals aware that there's more ways to help people to heal.
That's right.
I love that too. So I want to mention again that your book, the latest one that we will be discussing today, is Rapid Core Healing Pathways to Growth in Emotional Healing, using the unique dual approach of family constellations and emotional mind integration for personal and systematic health. So this is the title. I'll have the link on the podcast notes. So I want to go back again to the 3 modalities: rapid core healing, emotional mind integration. So you have created those 2 methods.
Yes,
and then
that's correct.
You combine that with family constellations.
Yes, I do.
And anyone can use this, right? There's health professionals that can integrate these modalities into whatever they have now, what they're using now.
Not really. They are so different to anything that is out there in the traditional methodologies. Even though I have a Master of Counselling and I've been a trainer or educator of counsellors for 8 years, post my school teaching, I never use my traditional methods anymore because these methods have just taken over my life. And my students or trainees who come through me might be psychologists or, have Gestalt therapy or various other particular methodologies who kind of think, oh, yeah, I can integrate this into what I do already. But actually, it doesn't work that way because these are so different. And if you actually just go with the flow of these new methodologies, people heal very quickly. And also, so in other words, yes, obviously it's always good to have knowledge and counselling skills sitting there in the background. It's a good bedrock, isn't it, to rest on. And it's also what clients are looking for because they don't know what else to look for. But then if you offer them a way of going to the core of what's happening And so that by the end of the one session, we've cleared a complete neural pathway and they've integrated it all within the session, and they walk out feeling fantastic, feeling love for themselves, then why would you want to go back to what you normally did, which probably gave you nowhere near those kind of results, right? So yes, I guess I'm being a bit revolutionary here in a sense, but and it's probably only people, practitioners themselves who are also at the end of their tether thinking, well, okay, I really want to make a difference in a more effective way, that will come to me as well, right? It's not just a tool you put in your little back pocket and pick out whenever you want, because it's a way of thinking. It's a philosophy. It comes from philosophy, and then comes the practice and the techniques as well. And if you follow them, certainly you put your own stamp of experience on it. Of course you do. And your own personality, of course. But the actual techniques and the way of working is very full, very big in itself, right? It's not just a little idea. It's a whole way of thinking and being and doing. And people who become engrossed in this find it so effective, they just keep going with it,
Yeah,
Why would you
right.
let something go if it's if it's getting you fantastic results?
Yes. Thank you for the clarification. And you are coming from experience, so you know.
Yes.
So the question that comes to mind initially is, how do you use these methods? Do you choose one over the other to start with? Or you integrate all of them? You kind of use...
Yeah, they're all integrated. So people can come to me and they can do Family Constellations training complete. That's fine, no problem. If that's all they want to do, they do that and they go away very happy. Some people come to me who want to do emotional mind integration complete, walk away happy, that's fine. But then most people really realize the value of each of them and want to join them together, right, into a more integrated approach, which is rapid core healing. And how I know is it's very much client-centered. The client shows me what needs to happen. So, for example, if we follow a neural pathway and it lands in the middle of a family system, a big row, or somebody's been beaten up, or even abused, it's like, okay, this is a mixture of family constellations and emotional mind integration to resolve the trauma of it, right? So I use them both within the same session. In other situations, it might go to an accident, let's say a car accident where it was horrible, in which case I would use emotional mind integration because it's locked in their personal unconscious mind. Other times it's about relationships, that they keep picking the wrong kind of partner, or, keep going into the same situations. That's a family constellation issue. And we end up going right back to where that started. And often it's a follow-on from father's life or mother's life or grandmother or great-grandmother or whatever. So the actual processes themselves lead me to go where the client needs to go. I'm following the client's neural pathways to where it started, right? So it's not a matter of, okay, I'm going to do a family constellation on this person or an EMI or a rapid core. It's like, what is your problem? What is your symptom? Okay, let's just start there and let's see where it goes, right? So I'm working phenomenologically, right? And that means putting aside my ego and my belief that I know what's wrong with you or anybody, and just using the neural pathways of the client to track back to where it actually started. And I never know where it's going to start. Sometimes I think in my mind, I think it's probably this, and 9 times out of 10 it goes in a totally different direction, right?
Yes.
So that's fine. I mean, that's just the nature of it. And by the way, I never call myself a healer. Because the way I work is facilitating self-healing in the client, right?
Yeah.
That's really the way it goes for me.
Wow. What's not to love about that? I have to say that again. Yes, following the flow of what it's needed. So you're not trying to change anything in a sense of in a linear way. That's really wonderful. And it sounds very spiritual to me.
It is very spiritual. It's always spiritual, even for people who are not particularly spiritual themselves.
Right.
You know, by the time they've done the process, that they're opened up to the next phase of who they are.
Yes. How wonderful. So these methods are tailored, or can they be used by anyone, applied on anyone with any kind of trauma history?
Yes, absolutely. Look, the other thing I found through my 24 years of private practice is that, okay, you've got trauma and you've got PTSD and you've got sexual abuse, sexual assault, you know, war trauma, etc. So that is full-on trauma. We know that.
Right.
But I also found that somebody who came to me with depression, for example, or anxiety or panic attacks or low self-esteem, if you track that back to where it started, it's nearly always a traumatic situation.
Yeah.
You know, they're being spanked by dad, or they're being told they'll never amount to anything, or, you know, which to a child is a scary situation, you know, or they're being told they're not good enough or whatever. And so trauma for me starts with a small T going to a big T, right? Along a continuum. So I work with everyone, whether it's a mental health issue or, you know, they know it's a trauma, let's say, we work there too. I never get them, by the way, to unpack their story ever, right?
Yeah.
If they know they've been raped or something horrible, I never do. I just say, well, what are the symptoms of that? Oh, the flashbacks, or the panicky feeling I get in my chest, or okay, we'll go with that. Let's go back, and we do it. I use it. I work subliminally. I don't work with talk therapy, so I always relax the person and put them in a very light hypnotic trance before we go in to do the work. And of course, before we can get to that point, we have to have reached a sense of, what would you say, rapport or comfort for the client, that they trust me, that they feel safe with me, before we can go to that next step of going down deeply. And I let them know that I'm with them every step of the way, and I don't put them in a deep trance, so they can keep talking to me all the way through. And if there's anything not right, I can alter it for them. Right? So that makes such a big difference in terms of rapport and trust.
Yes.
And I'm able then to follow wherever they need to go and help them sort it out, find a solution, find their justice, find the new perspective, give back all the rubbish that have been carrying, if you like, to the appropriate people, etc., etc. So it works for a wide range, from mental health, trauma, relationships, personal development.
Right. So that's wonderful to know. And I love the piece that the client doesn't have to go back to the story, go back to the memories.
That re-traumatizes. I remember as a young counsellor, before I developed all these methodologies and following counselling protocol, if you like, you know, getting the person to tell their story. And I remember that night waking up, having a nightmare, thinking it was happening to me, right? Vicarious trauma. Counsellors often experience vicarious trauma because they are listening to all this awful stuff coming all the time. I never have to listen to a bad story ever again, right?
Yes.
Because, you know, I set it up in a certain way where the person needs to do what they need to do. They come out feeling really good, and they don't have to think about it anymore. When I see them again, how's that going? No. What do you mean? Oh, it's gone. Yeah. Once it's completely gone, it's so gone, it's in the background, and they move on. Yeah.
Yes. Wow. I love that too. And so you access the subconscious and the unconscious mind with this process, the processes.
Well, I hardly ever think about the conscious mind, to be honest, apart from getting from them what their symptoms, that feeling of whatever, that they don't want to feel anymore or experience anymore. And then once we've got that in the interview, in the first part of the process, then after that I say, okay, you ready to start? And then we do start. And I put them into a light trance pretty much straight away, and then we go from there. Yeah.
Okay. There's something that you said in your book. You say, in these approaches, meaning rapid core healing, emotional mind integration, and family constellations, you say there is a belief that solutions can be found for the most part. But what is the solution, you ask? And then you say, in this approach, a solution might be to acknowledge what cannot be changed.
Yes, absolutely.
So that caught my attention because, usually we are trying to change something when we think about healing. But this is very refreshing. So talk to me for a moment about acceptance of what cannot be changed.
Yes, okay. A lot of people, I'll just give you an example. It's easy to talk in an example than to talk abstractly. Everybody has an idea of other people coming from good families, easy families, well-adjusted families. I've been in this work now for 24 years and I've never yet come across a really fully functional, healthy family, right? Okay, so the nature of human beings is the chaos that we're born into. So starting with that, I guess accepting who you are must start with accepting your dad as he is or was, and your mother as he is or was, and also grandparents and great-grandparents and so on all the way back. Now, acceptance doesn't mean I agree with what you did. It means I agree that you are as you are. If I can't accept you, then I can't accept me, right? So once we resolve the trauma that's happened between those parties for you, and this is all internally for the client, then it comes to a point where, okay, I don't have to blame you anymore. I can just accept you for who you are because you are also living your own trauma too. And I take the love that came through that family system because there's always love there too, right? Even in a difficult situation, even in the mother or father who are not very present or angry or violent or whatever. At their heart, they never wanted to be this way. Now, if we say to ourselves, I never want to be like you, then you have pretty much shut down the love that's coming through the system towards you. And also your soul will say, Yildiz, you're not allowed to reject where you come from. You're not allowed. And that then comes up in me and it comes out in the way I treat my children too.
Right.
Or don't have children because I don't think I can manage with all my trauma. Yeah. So it's like, so acceptance is some things we can't change. If we're already here, then we are fated or we had a destiny with that particular family for some reason, right? And perhaps the reason is about growth and healing and acceptance. I don't know. I mean, everybody's going to be different, of course. But the first step in any healing process is accepting who you are by accepting your family as they are. Now, this is particularly hard in domestic violence or in sexual abuse or any other abusive situation. But that is part of our spiritual path and part of our need for healing. And that's the power of family constellations, can help people come to that place relatively quickly, honestly. A couple of sessions, really, 2 or 3 max. You can come to such a different place with the people that brought you into life. So, because even if it was painful and awful, you're here because of them, right? And you're here because they gave birth to you and gave you food, hopefully, and looked after you. And even if it was very rudimentary, you got to be a woman, you got to be a man, you got to have all these possibilities. Now let's just resolve the trauma that stops you from really realizing yourself in a fuller way. So yes, it starts with the original family, and then once you that is in a better place, then looking at the inner self and coming to that place of accepting yourself as you are. But you can't really do that if you're still not accepting mom or dad or somebody else on that line.
Wow, that's amazing. I never actually thought it that way, but I never had children, and there was nothing wrong with my body. Biologically, I was okay, but I never got pregnant. So I'm wondering if that had to do with not accepting my parents. Yeah, it feels like now that you listening to you, it's just coming back to me that how interesting, because I never rejected the idea of having children, but I couldn't, the body couldn't do it.
Yeah.
How interesting.
Yeah.
So there's something else that you talk in your book, amnesia. You say the mind has a way of protecting itself from pain and from what it is not ready to experience in terms of trauma. Oh, I'd love to hear more about this too, Yildiz.
Well, a lot of people who have trauma, whether it's an incident in childhood or something that happens in your adult life, trauma is so horrifying, that the mind is the fight and flight response comes up just to get you safe, to either freeze or run away or fight or whatever you need to do. But then it often closes down that memory completely into the unconscious mind, the amygdala, right? And often we get on, but we feel numb, right? The numbness means there's a shutdown in all the chakras, in all the parts of the body and mind. And the numbness then, but it means you can carry on. You don't need to feel. You can still go to work. You can still make the dinner. You can still do whatever you need to do, right? But you're not living fully. You're shut down. And then often that shutting down will stay there for a very long time until you're in a safer place, and then the little triggers start coming up, the flashbacks or the memories or the smells or whatever it is. And you get, oh my God, yeah, oh, right, that happened, right, the panic attack and the anxiety and all of that stuff. So trauma happens, but the mind and the body is very well equipped to shut us down, to get through it to a safe place. And then only when and if we're in a really safe place does it start to come up again. Or we get a repeat of a similar situation. So, for example, a certain man or a certain smell or a certain voice or whatever triggers you back to what happened back then. So trauma may lie inside somebody for 20 years, 30 years before it starts to come up, It's not so unusual. It's more unusual that it happens straight away after an event, right? Because we do need to protect ourselves, and when we're young, it's just the way of getting through. It's a way of adapting, isn't it, to survival. I remember a case I had of a lady who came to me she might have been 40s or 50s, and she had 3 children in her earlier life, and that was in her mid-20s to 30s. And her 3rd child died in a swimming pool, drowning, right, in her back garden. Okay, tragic. She went through, of course she cried, of course she was upset, of course, all of that. But she got on with her life. She looked after her other two children. She was a wife. She got to work. She did lots of stuff. And then she came to me in her 40s or 50s and said, "Why am I getting all these flashbacks now of my poor little baby boy in the pool? Why?" Because the trauma had been successful, hadn't it, in being repressed so she could get on with life. And now she had to deal with it, right?
Wow.
So that's kind of how it works, yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. So would you say that, I think you mentioned now, but please correct me if I didn't understand that clearly. So those repressed traumas, those memories, they stay within the unconscious mind?
In the unconscious mind and body, right?
In the body too. Right.
Our mind is not isolated from our body. It's all joined up by neural networks going through everything, isn't it? So you find sometimes it's resting in the chest, or sometimes it's resting in the belly, or sometimes it's on our shoulders, in our throat, in our eyes, I've had people having it in their fingers or in their feet, So it rests somewhere, right? And I believe that trauma, wherever it rests, is the cause then of physical illness as well, right?
Yes.
You understand? So the emotional trauma, or the energy of the emotional trauma, sits somewhere, and it's so disturbing and disturbed that it kind of can cause, the cancer or the something or the whatever it is happening in your body, right? And so by releasing trauma, and I never say to people, I can cure your cancer ever, right? I'm not so silly to say that. But it's like, well, look, let's release the trauma of it and let's see what happens, right? Because if you're going to a natural therapist or you're doing all the things you need to do to look after your physical body, if we can unlock the emotional component of it, or the trauma of it, then surely whatever you're doing to look after yourself will flow easier, right? And often people do recover quite nicely. So, but I don't like to promise that, honestly, because I can't know. It's all about self-healing, isn't it? So I can't know what their soul needs to do, on a deeper level. I have to leave that to them.
Yeah. You see, I also, I love how you connect everything back to universal wisdom. So you talked about, you're using spiritual terms. So, I mean, what's not to love about that? We do need to see humans as wholeness, as one whole integrated unit that's not separate. We are not only pieces, right, Yildiz?
Absolutely. Yeah. The mind is definitely not separate from the body. Absolutely.
Right. I love the way you said that just now. And I remember talking to somebody here who said that. Yeah, the body, when we were talking about the unconscious mind, she said the body represents that very much.
Yeah, that's right. The body shows it all, to be honest. Yeah.
And the subconscious mind would be what is easily detected, per se. It's more it's easier to know what's happening at the level of the subconscious because it's easier to access in a way, Yildiz, than the unconscious.
Look, if you're skilled at accessing, it's incredibly easy to access. I can get somebody into an unconscious trance within the first
wow
5 minutes of starting. Well, not even 5 minutes, a minute or two. We're almost there, and it's like, well, it's a very easy thing to access. But I don't like people to know how to open up the subconscious mind unless they also have the skills to know how to process what's going to come up, right? It's actually very dangerous, I believe, to be opening up stuff from the subconscious mind unless you're skilled to know how to process what comes up. And as I've said to you before, I never quite know what's going to come up. So I need to make sure my skill sets are really present to be able to adapt them to whatever this particular person is going to allowed to come up at that moment. Yeah.
Right. I love what you do. I mean, I had no idea until I talked to you now how you connect everything. That's really a wonderful thing. And I'm seeing that more and more. I talk to a lot of therapists, psychologists, all kinds of mental health professionals, and I see that now more than ever, this integration of seeing a person, a human being, as connected to everything else, the body, mind, heart, and spirit or soul. So that is such a wonderful thing. Thank you so much, Yildiz, for being you, for being open to life, for doing what you do. It's very much needed. Thank you. We're almost at the end. I do have a few more questions for you, the ending questions, but I want to mention the services that you offer. So I went on your website. So you offer rapid core healing. They are called RCH sessions. So there's the same services available. So RCH, rapid core healing, family constellations, and EMI, family constellations workshops. That too,
yes, I do.
Trauma-informed treatments and trauma-informed training, which is wonderful to know. So you offer the International Online Certificate Training in Practical Trauma-Informed Treatment, PTIT, with rapid core healing. So I'm just reading here from my notes. Did I miss anything, Yildiz?
No, that's fine. And the training is practical trauma-informed treatment, but it is actually rapid core healing, right? Because rapid core healing itself does all of that. So, yeah. And I noticed there's a lot of trauma-informed counseling or psychotherapy around at the moment. But I don't know that there's much around fast, effective trauma processing, right? Which is really what I am advocating at the moment and pushing forward, because it's one thing to talk about something and manage the symptoms. It's another thing altogether to help them resolve it quickly, literally 1, 2, 3, 4 sessions maximum, right, is complete. So that's really what I'm offering. And all of my services are online as well.
Yeah, that's wonderful to know. So the name is the name, your website's a perfect fit for what you do, rapidcorehealing.com. So that's the website as well. And I'll have on the podcast notes, I'll have the website there clickable. So it's easy to just go to the page. And also your books. I have the book that we talked today about rapid core healing pathways to growth in emotional healing. This book will be linked on the podcast notes as well. So at the end, I do have the ending questions for you, Yildiz. But before I ask you my ending question, would you like to add anything else or read a passage in your book?
It's never too late to heal from the past and grow into the present with acceptance and love.
Yes. That's a beautiful message. In a way, summarizes everything. Wow. Yes. My ending question will probably include that too. Your answer will have some of that perfume. So let me ask you this one that I usually ask everyone. What 3 experiences you wish everyone to have before they die?
To embrace themselves as part of their system, to see what that has given them, and to embrace themselves and share it with others.
Yes. Thank you so much, Yildiz, again, for your presence in our reality, shared reality, for being open to life, your own healing and passing that on and going deeper into it. That's what I love the most. Not ending anywhere, stopping anywhere, but constantly being open to learn, being curious. So thank you so much for being you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Valeria.
Thank you. Take good care and we'll talk soon. We'll be in touch again. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening. To learn more about Yildiz Sithi and her work, please visit rapidcorehealing.com.
more about this podcast, please visit fitforjoy.org/podcast. Thank you again for listening, and bye for now.